I'm in a severely overtrained state, but I'm going to persist for 2 more weeks with orals, whether it's Anadrol, Superdrol, or whatever oral of preference, and then really mess my body up so much that I need to take more than a week off, maybe 2 weeks. Vigorous Steve here. Let's discuss a couple cues that your body will give you, a couple signals that you need to listen to, so you know when it's time to schedule a deload, or even take a whole week off from the gym just to catch up on rest and recovery. Because a lot of us tend to overtrain or get into a state of overreaching when we're trying to acquire particular targets of weights and reps when we follow progressive overload. And then suddenly we're overreaching, we don't get our targets, you get a little bit upset and disappointed with yourself. But that's probably because a deload is coming up. Now, I know that a lot of us follow particular training blocks, as do I. I initially set myself up for an 8-week training block, but I might have to reduce that to 6 weeks because now I'm 7 weeks into the training block that I designed for myself. And after the 7th week, I already came into an overtrained state. Only 5 weeks on cycle, started ramping up my training intensity before I started the cycle. So 7 weeks into it, got into an overtrained state. And here we are, taking a deload, a whole week of rest. Because I noticed that whether I do a 50% deload, with either 50% of the intensity or 50% of the rep ranges, I notice that I don't really lose strength even if I take a whole week off. So I'd rather just stay at home, focus on work, catch up on a lot of things that I've been neglecting a little bit, right? There's always a priority list and I try to tack off as many things as I can during the day. And then things with a low priority kind of get pushed to the side. So that's what this week is for, allowing me to catch up a little bit on work I've been postponing. Now, a couple cues that are very easy to listen to. And again, I'm making this video mostly for myself because I always have a tendency to push another week, push another week, push another week because I still like that grind or die attitude. And I still like to push the boundaries a little bit. And I tell myself in the mirror, like, Steve, you don't need to stop right now. You can do a little bit more weight next week and increase the intensity also. You're still making good progress. You don't need to take a week off. And then, you get into an overtrained state. So here we are, catching up on a lot of naps. Now, what I always notice is that when I get into an overtrained state and when it's time to deload, is that my sleep patterns start to alter. Not for the better, usually for the worst. So I notice that I'm not as sleepy anymore at the end of the day. Normally I would go to bed at 10, wake up around 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. I sleep according to my circadian rhythm. But when you get into an overtrained state, the cortisol levels start to rise a little bit, right? You're late on recovery. Cortisol rises a little bit to catch up with this recovery and metabolize a little bit of amino acids into other energy sources. The problem is when cortisol starts to chronically elevate, it alters your sleep pattern. So you see that cortisol levels are more elevated in the evening, keeping you awake. It's also more elevated in the morning, so now your sleep patterns are shorter. So instead of getting 8 hours of sleep, I was getting about 5 hours sometimes, which is really not ideal when you're trying to make progress and have a ton of work to do during the day. Then as cortisol levels decline during the day, you take longer and longer and longer naps. So instead of taking a 10-minute, 20-minute power nap in the afternoon, usually I take that around 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I started to wanted to do a power nap of 1 hour at 12 already, which is usually the time that I record. So it's not very productive to what I'm trying to accomplish here on YouTube. And that's why there were, unfortunately no videos last week because I ended up sleeping during the time that I'm usually recording. Shame on me. I know. My bad, guys. Sorry. So when you start to notice that you're staying awake longer in the evening, you're not really tired. You're like, I'm watching another YouTube video or another movie, right? You turn to a movie marathon at the end of the day, and you start to get progressively more sleepy during the day, and you need 2 power naps just to get through the day. That's your first cue. It's time to take a step back. Cortisol levels are chronically elevated, and you need to bring those down just by taking some rest. And whether that's taking a full week off or halving your intensity at the gym the week after just to catch up a little bit on recovery and not train to failure. I will discuss that at the end of the video, a couple different methods to structure your deload accordingly. Now, if you're using something like an ashwagandha root extract or phosphatidylserine or high dosages of testosterone, right, all of them are able to suppress cortisol to a certain extent, you might be able to extend this from happening, maybe another week or 2, 3 weeks, sometimes even 4 weeks, depending on your training intensity. But there will come a point in time where your sleep patterns are not so good anymore, and that's your first cue just to take a step back so you can live to fight another day, right, a week later. Another thing that will start to occur is irritability. Now, I didn't really notice that last week, because we had some bad news in the fitness industry, so I was not in a position to get irritable. I was just a little bit down. But I noticed in previous times that I started getting to an overtrained state that I would get a little bit irritable, snappy, right? Things that would annoy me in the past, not so much, would now annoy me. And it's these little things that are out of your control, like traffic, people queuing up at the grocery store, all these little things, you just get a little bit snappy and irritable, even though I haven't touched the trembolone sandwich for almost 8 years now. So the irritability shouldn't really be there unless I'm in a really severe caloric deficit for a couple of weeks on end. And then I usually compensate with high dosages of testosterone or primobolan. So that's where some of the irritability could come from also. So you have to kind of figure out if you start to get irritable without a root cause, it's probably because you're overtraining and it's time to schedule a deload. And of course, if you're in a chronic caloric deficit, or on the trembolone sandwich, then it's a little bit hard to gauge where the irritability is coming from. So you need to make a careful assessment regarding that. And of course, you can also become irritable when your sleep patterns are completely off, because now you feel a little bit lethargic and tired during the day. Again, another cue for you to take a deload. Another cue you should listen to is very, very simple, actually. It's just the loss of motivation. You know, when you started your training block, you were very, very motivated to reach all these targets that you set yourself. You know, I want to be huge. I want to be this amount of weight. I want to get this many abs, and I want to rep this much weight, right? All these targets that you set yourself up for the next 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks. If you notice you start to lose motivation, even though you have not attained those goals, also time to take a step back. You simply take a week off or you schedule a deload so you can continue reaching for those goals afterwards. You can also feel that you're maybe getting a little bit lethargic, or you don't even want to go to the gym because when you look in the mirror, you're close to your goal, but you're not quite there yet. Again, loss of motivation. Just take a step back, deload, and continue the week after. Another cue you should definitely listen to are micro injuries, little nagging pains in the connective tissue, the joints, the tendons, the ligaments, or somewhere funky in the skeletal muscle, like somewhere halfway that's not even an attachment point. When you notice these little pains that don't really prevent you from training at normal capacity, as long as you got some good warm-up practices in place, or some elbow sleeves or knee sleeves or other lifting gear, just so you can continue to grind or die your way through. When these nagging injuries start to build up, not only in one place, but in multiple places, again, time to take a step back, take a whole week off. Give yourself a couple days to catch up on recovery, because it simply means that these particular areas are not recovering in the time in between workouts when you're hitting this body part again. And keep in mind that certain body parts you're hit multiple times per week. So if you're doing a chest day and a shoulder day and an arm day, you're hitting triceps 3 times per week. And then particular areas in the triceps might get very, very tight, or the connection to the shoulder starts to hurt, or the elbow, right? And then it's also just time to take a week off. Now, if you do push-pull legs, for example, so you do chest, shoulders, and triceps on your push day, and you do push-pull legs twice a week, you still hit triceps with a lot of exercises twice per week. So again, keep all of that in mind. Sometimes it's okay to take a step back, allow yourself to catch up on recovery, and work through these nagging pains and micro injuries that could turn into full-blown muscle tears if you're not careful, right? A lot of guys, they don't want to take time off. They're a little bit stubborn and they grind through the pain. And keep in mind, well, we see it many times in the fitness industry, you're always 1 rep away from tearing your body in half. So keep those micro injuries always in the back of your head. when they start to accumulate, you notice that, I have a little pain here in my left knee, a little pain in my right shoulder, and here and there, and this body part doesn't feel right. Take a step back, take a week off, allow yourself to catch up on recovery, maybe schedule a deep tissue massage therapy session or grass-down therapy, or start spinning some TB500 and BPC 157 and GHK copper in that particular area to speed up recovery, lower the inflammation, increase angiogenesis, improve collagen synthesis, etc., 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 etc. And just give yourself another week of recovery, where you can spend this time focusing on other stuff. How do we schedule a deload? Well, we can do it basically 3 things. We can have the intensity regarding the working weight that we're using. We can have the intensity regarding the rep ranges that we're using, or we can take a full week off. And then there's an extra thing we can do while taking a week off, and that's fasting, which is what I'm doing right now. So I schedule my deload. I take a week off from training, and I also take a week off from eating. Well, I'm doing a fasting mimicking diet, so I'm taking a week off from direct carbohydrate sources, direct protein sources, and direct fat sources. Am I scared to lose muscle mass? No, but I'll make a separate video about fasting after this one. Now, let's discuss the 50% intensity regarding the working weights. Let's say you have particular targets, you follow progressive overload, and you've been doing the 50 kilo dumbbells for chest. Well, that's 110 pounds, 115 pounds. Whatever pounds or kilos you've been doing for a particular exercise, you take half the weight. So if that's 50 kilo dumbbells for 8 reps, for example, now you take 25 kilo dumbbells for 8 reps. You don't have to follow a very structured method, because during this week, it's simply about catching up on recovery. Now, if you're a strength athlete, there's particular programs that, unfortunately, I'm not very familiar with. So you have a scheduled deload, right, with maybe 80% of your 1 rep max, or 60% or 50% or whatever. For me, I found it works very, very well. You still go to the gym, you improve a little bit of blood flow with 50% of the working weight that you used previously with the same amount of reps, right? Usually you get to maintain your strength doing this, but you don't stimulate your muscle that much. You don't create any hypertrophy response. You're certainly not training to failure, because you're not using a working weight that's anywhere close to your weight that you usually take to failure. But you still enable some sort of mind-muscle connection. You still get a pump. You still burn through a little bit of glycogen. And, well, if you're addicted to training, then of course it's a good way to find yourself to the gym and just move half the weight you're used to moving. Another deloading method, which I found works very well for weaker body parts that you're still trying to improve, that you really try to apply progressive overload to, structure at the beginning of the workout. You even carb cycle around these body parts because you don't want them to lag in any way, shape, or form. You need to maintain that strength. You actively try to improve these body parts. So the deload is a little bit different. You still aim for the working weight that you're used to working with, that you take to failure. So those 50 kilo dumbbells for chest, you still try to do, but instead of doing 8 reps, you do 4 reps or maybe 3 reps. You touch the weight, you go through the motion, you activate this muscle, but you simply don't take it to failure. Now, the sets leading up to that, you also reduce the volume. So you're really reducing the volume during this 50% rep range that you use the same weight for, but you don't take these sets anywhere close to failure, right? So you allow your central nervous system to really take a break, not get into this super sympathetic state where you're in a fight or flight mode all the time during the workout and after the workout for a couple hours. Again, not raising your cortisol levels unnecessarily. But you're still touching this weight. So the motor function, right, the neurological drive that's involved with touching particular weights remains intact. But the hypertrophy response and the cortisol release post-workout is mitigated for a week. And you can combine both methods. Let's say a stronger body part, for me, for example, that's back. I would do 50% of the weight and do a higher amount of reps just to burn through a little bit of glycogen. And for chest, I would do the same weights, just half the reps, right? That's 2 different methods. You can incorporate both, but you don't take anything to failure. Give your central nervous system some time to relax, take a break, And of course, catch up on recovery because you're not stimulating hypertrophy or hyperplasia in both scenarios. I've done this for many, many years. I prefer both methods. Now that I've attained most of the muscle mass that I wanted to attain, and I'm already hovering around the 100 kilos, I just take a week off nowadays. I notice that I don't lose any strength. Maybe it's because I'm not that strong. Who knows? I just take a week off. Don't go to the gym, focus on other things, and just calm everything down. I found that it works very well for me. It works very, very well for other people, especially if you get into a scenario where you start to lose motivation. You need to get that itch back to go to the gym. And the only way you get that itch back is with abstinence. It's that simple, because if you have targets and you actively try to attain those targets, you go to the gym and you do 50%, whether that's the reps or the weight. You feel like you're wasting your time. And then you realize halfway through the workout, man, I could spend my time so much better. I got all this work to do. I'm here for 1.5 hours and another 30 minutes to get to the gym and in my pre-workout ritual and my post-workout ritual. I'm still sweating buckets, So, right, you're losing 2 hours out of the day while not being that productive regarding your workout, right? Even though you're doing a deload, take a step back to take 100,000 steps forward, or maybe 100. Right? However you want to look at it. So I prefer just to stay home. That's what I'm doing right now. Not go to the gym. Just spend my hours doing something else and calm everything down. Calm everything down, get that itch back. Now, it's been 4 days since I haven't trained, and I'm already getting that itch back. I'm still going to abstain for another 3 days until I'm ready to go to the gym, fully recovered, fully energized, had a long period of time where my central nervous system was able to take a break, get my sleep patterns back, don't need additional naps during the day because I'm in an overtrained state, right? Everything is recovered and back to a normal state again, where I can continue for about 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks. Now, I usually do training blocks on the calendar. So let's say 6 weeks of training or 8 weeks of training and then take a week off. Because again, you're probably the same way. You want to train, you want to make progress, you want to reach particular goals. And at one point, your body is just simply not cooperating, and you can force it a little bit more with the supplements or performance-enhancing drugs, or increase the food intake, or do like a 2 weeks of orals at the end, right? That's also very common at the end of the off season. I'm in a severely overtrained state, but I'm going to persist for 2 more weeks with orals, whether it's Anadrol, Superdrol, or whatever oral of preference, and then really mess my body up so much that I need to take more than a week off, maybe 2 weeks, but right, your liver will thank you for it also, right? There's many different ways to approach it. Personally, I prefer to take a full week off and focus on work and just calm everything down and get that itch back. So when I go back to the gym, I'm fully energized and really excited again. And then as soon as that motivation starts to taper off, even if I haven't reached my goals, I'll finish off the week, take another week off, and whether that's after 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, however long it takes for me to make good progress, not collect a lot of micro injuries and not have altered sleep patterns, that's how long it's going to take. It might be 5 weeks, maybe 8 weeks, maybe even 12 weeks, right? Depending on all the other variables that are included in our bodybuilding journey. Hope this helps, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're looking for the most comprehensive guides to bodybuilding pharmacology, you can find the ebooks on my website, vigoroussteve.com/shop. I also got a detailed article regarding progressive overload and how to design your upper-lower body split, or a push-pull legs split, or push-pull legs A and B routine, 4-day split, 5-day split, even a 6-day split. I got a ton of articles about training on my website. I'll link them down below. Give them a read so you know when to deload as well. Looking for personalized advice? Always available for consultations. Follow me on Instagram at VigorSteve. Vigorous crew, you guys know what to do. Front double bicep for you guys, even though these biceps and triceps are a little bit overtrained due to overreaching. So I'm taking a whole week off and depleting glycogen so that I can be motivated yet again next week. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.